March 14th, 2026, right at 7:28 p.m. South Texas, obviously. And yes, more growth on the bay laurel trees. Isn't that precious, really? And yeah, there's Uno over there. Yeah, hanging out. And of course the sunset. Let's see where it sets today. It looks like it's the same place as yesterday. But then, we're never in the same place twice, are we? No, totally. So, bringing in angels of white light and all benevolence to help me share my story from 10 to 15, 1973 to 1978. What a time that was. Watergate. End of the Vietnam War. Wow. Yeah. It's a really interesting time. And see, the trees are blooming. Isn't that sweet? Yep, here comes the leaves. Spring is here, loves. Absolutely. It's awesome, really. And here's the other laurel trees. Yeah, that was a pinnacle point in time. From 73 to 78. I remember that. I do. I remember the gas lines. I remember the end of Vietnam finally, And we were in the 70s where, you had Three Dog Night, Sly and the Family Stone. You had Led Zeppelin, and you had, all kinds of stuff going on. Ozzy Osbourne. Yeah, from 10 to 15. Wow, a lot happened then. Definitely. I remember my mom getting me a moped, a little yellow one, and I had a little, I had a little sticker on it. Only took $1 to fill that thing up, and I drove that moped everywhere. And I put a little sticker on it that said, "When I grow up, I want to be a Harley." It was precious. It only took one. It was $1 a gallon then. Gas was. Yeah. And I was still roller skating, and of course. And in that time, my mom came home, and I talked about that last chapter. And I was right. Things were not going to be all right. And Dad took off again after Mom got everything. And I knew that it was never going to be the same. Confirmation. And we got along for a while, but then, like I said yesterday, Mom was really jelly. I was, blonde hair, blue eyes, tall, tan, beautiful, a Barbie doll I was. I didn't mean to be, but that was me. And there came a time when I was about 11, and Mom was drinking and raging. And she came after me one night, and she was trying to kill me, quite frankly. She attacked me out of nowhere. And, before that time, I never lifted a finger to my mother. No, I did not, but this was very threatening. I felt like my life was in danger, absolutely. So I got her over this bed frame, footboard, and I was choking her out, and I had her by the jugular, just holding her down. And she would have killed me had I let her up. And I had her by the throat, and I'm just pressing because I just wanted it to stop. And something in me, like lightning, let go. And I let go of her, and she just kind of laid there, And I ran. I was in my nightgown. It was at night. It was dark. I was so scared. And I ran up to my friend Tina Hall, and I called the Walnut Creek PD, and they said, "Come on, we'll take you home. We'll take you home. Can't be that bad." I said, "Sirs, with all due respect, if you take me home, someone's going to die there. If you take me back there. And I don't want to hurt my mother." So I said, you'll have to take me to the shelter. I cannot go back there. No. And so the officers took me to Martinez County Shelter. And I stayed there. And I wrote my dad. He was in Wickenburg, Arizona with Debbie at the time, who was only like 3 years older than me. David and Clifford were still with Mom. And I wrote him. I said, Mom and I just can't get along, Dad. Can I please come stay with you? I can't live with her, dude. And he wrote back and said, hey, I got no room for you. You know, sorry you can't get along, but I don't know what to tell you. Like, okay. You know, I tried to kill myself that day. But I was successful, obviously. Yeah. And so I went with my caseworker, Shirley Jones, with CYFD. And she helped me find Ralph and Marilyn Rhodes in Pleasant Hill, California. And they had 4 kids. Dustin, Jennifer, Stevie, and Kimberly. And Kimberly was the youngest. She was 6 months old. And then Stephen was 6 months. Kimberly was 2. Jenny was 4. And Dustin was 7. And I went to stay with them. And, of course, I did a lot of babysitting. But I wasn't at my mom's house, and I was at peace. Ralph taught me how to do handwriting. And Ralph taught me how to milk goats and how to raise chickens and how to raise flower gardens and vegetable gardens. And Ralph taught me so much, how to milk a goat, how to do a chicken, how to do a rabbit. Yeah, we had fresh food that we took care of. And eggs every day, and yeah, it was a great way, it really was. And he took me to Washington State one year. Him and the whole family, they were checking out Bellingham, Washington, because they wanted to move there. And we took a road trip from Pleasant Hill all the way to Bellingham, Washington. It was a long way. And I learned my handwriting there on the way. I learned how to write upside down and backwards even. It was trippy. But I got my handwriting thanks to Ralph. And a lot of practice. And we took that summer, you know, in Washington, and I really loved it. I had a really good time. I did. And when we got back from that, you know, my mom had called me, of course, you know, in Washington. And we want you home. Come on home. Please come home. Please come home. It's going to be better. I promise it's going to be better. And we came back, you know, from Washington State. And when we got back, there's Mama Kitty Meow. There's Mama Kitty Meow. Whole load of babies. And when we got back from Bellingham, Washington, you know, my mom convinced me to go back home. And when I got in the car, you know, because once I left, Ralph and Marilyn told me, you can't come back. Once you leave the door and go with your mom, you can't come back no more. You know, Mom convinced me she wanted me home, that she missed me. It was going to be better, right? Yeah. And so I get in the car and she says, well, I only wanted you back for your check because you got Social Security form here. Well, oh God. That hit me like a ton. I still remember, and that was 50 years ago. And that hurt a lot to think that, hey, she just wanted it for me for the money. She didn't want me home. And it was going to be awful, and I knew it from there. I was, I think, 12 then or so, something like that, 13. And so I went back home, and I was right again. It's just not going to be fun. And yeah, I got home, and it was okay for a while, and then she started in again. Drinking and being raging at me, taking it out on me. My brothers were great. They could do no wrong, even though David stole her mortgage money. And Clifford just wanted the house. I was the only girl, and boy, they all blamed everything on me. It was awful, really. And then about 13, 14, I met George. George Robin Chirp, of all names. And he gave me a vehicle to get out of my mom's house. But before that happened, before I met George, I had a boyfriend named Brian. I was just going into Pleasant Hill High School. I had my last surgery done, get my eyes straight. And so I had red, white, and blue eyes going into high school. It was awful. And I met Brian through another friend. And he became my boyfriend, Brian. And he was a guitar player. He could play a mean guitar, let me tell you what. He was a great guitarist. Big Viking dude there in Walnut Creek. And yeah, so we became, you know, that was when mono had come out. And he had caught mono. And we were having school strikes then. We were having walkouts at Pleasant Hill High School. And I didn't fit in there either. There really wasn't anywhere that I fit in. No, I was always different from everybody. Yeah, so I kind of did my own thing. But anyway, I ended up getting pregnant from Brian. You know, I was off school and hanging out, and yeah, and unfortunately, you know, that's what happened. And it was really interesting because they just did Roe versus Wade in 1973. And this was only a few years later, 3 or 4 years later, right? And my social worker, Shirley Brown with CYFD, you know, came to me and said, hey, you know, we could just get rid of it. It's going to mess up your whole life if you have it. You just got into high school and, you know, hey, we got this rule called Roe versus Wade. No problem. Hey, I'll set you up with a doctor right away. Through CYFD and Planned Parenthood, you see. It was all the rage. Don't take any responsibility. Just, you know, suck it out the cage. Yeah. So, and my Brian, my boyfriend, he didn't want it. He wanted nothing to do with it. Yep. So, they made it very easy for me at 13, 14 to have my first child aborted. You know, just because a law was passed and hey, made it easy, right? Don't take responsibility. Which I regret to this very day. 15, oh gosh. Yeah, I think I was 15 then. Yeah, so that's been a long stretch I've carried that. And I did it just because we could. Didn't make it right though, really. Doesn't mean you should. Yeah, so let me zoom up on that sunset. Ooh, that's pretty. That's awesome. Yeah, so I carried that burden. And from that, my pregnancies were pretty much always complicated. And, you know, just because it was fashionable, we all did it. And women's lib was in big, you know. And my mother always raised me to be independent, to make my own money and pay my own bills. Because she said, hey, if you're going to rely on any guy, you might as well die. Because they're not going to be there for you. You got to take care of you. So my mother always, you know, was encouraging for me to work, make my own money, pay my own way. And I always did. I love my mother for that. She's very smart that way. She says, what if the dude dies, you know, then what are you going to do? Yeah, who's going to take care of you? Well, you better take care of yourself, girl. Because if you're getting child support for some guy and then he decides to take a fly, well, then you're going to be sitting there with you and your kid as you cry. So don't depend on any guy. So, yeah, unfortunately, I got rid of my first baby. I regret it. I always will. And I went in because it was convenient, but it sure as chips was not the right thing to do it. And that was a big mistake, Roe versus Wade. I think it took away any accountability or responsibility for life, for creating life. Yeah. And of course, it didn't cost me a dime. It was free, sadly. Made it very easy. And I'm not the only one who fell for that trap of no morality, really. That was the trend, you know, back then. Sad to say, but hey, I lived that history. And I learned a lot from it, really. Yeah, totally. And, yeah, so I was going from 10 to 15. And I'm at 15 minutes. Isn't that interesting? This chapter may be short-lived. But I was writing poetry in high school as long as I stayed. That was up to 15. And a lot happened in the world at that time. There's Batty. Kick about. Yeah, it's cool and all. It's been a beautiful day. And when I was 13, I'm going to kind of jump around a little bit because this is from 10 to 15, 1973 to 1978. And when I was 13, I was in 7th, 8th grade, and I was in gym pumping weights. And I had a great coach. He was a Marine. And boy, he drilled us. He did. And we got lifting weights. And I got really big. Something happened at 13 where I was lifting weights in weight class, you know. And I got these huge muscles. And I was already pretty big. I was already 5'10" at 13. And gargantuan, you know. And so I started developing these big muscles. I think I got too much testosterone in lifting weights. And I grew an Adam's apple. It's the weirdest thing. And my voice got really deep. And then I didn't know kind of what I was. And we just started sex education at 13, which I think is appropriate. Start educating when you start menstruating or you're ready, you know, to start doing that. Then start educating them, you know, quite frankly. I think that's the way at 13 when you start. Go in that direction. And so I appreciated my sex education. My parents had to sign a permission slip for it, which I think is also very appropriate. Anyway, so I did my sex education, and I recognized I got too much testosterone, but I didn't know if I was attracted to girls or guys, though. My whole physiology changed. And so I had to make a decision. Okay, well, hey, you're only 13. Let's wait until you're 21 and make a decision. Until then, just kind of, you know, fly by and see where you land, you know. And, yeah, and test the waters. And then when you're 21 and you're responsible, you can decide where you stand when you land. I think that was a very good decision. If you can't smoke, can't drink, whatnot, until you're 21, why would you want to make a decision like changing your sexuality? Totally. So, hey, yeah, I waited. And I discovered who I was, and, you know, later in life. That's another story at Mount Shasta. I'll have to tell you. But anyway, so at 13, that happened. And I was always drawing or doing art or music or poetry. I really loved it. And I met George right around that time, 13, 14, yeah. And yeah, that was trippy. George Robin, sure. Like I said before, he saved me from my mommy, got me out of her house anyway. But he was a drunk, and oh man, and we were all partying. Then, you know, Leonard Skinner passed away, I remember. And my mom, many attempts at suicide. She was always in the hospital, one way or another, because she, again, manic depressive, and she had special abilities, and she was always trying to kill herself, really. It was awful for us. Either Dave finding her with her wrist slit in the bathtub or me finding her all over the kitchen floor with pills everywhere. Yeah, Mom was really trippy. And Christmas time, the tree went out the door. Every year it was traditional. Yeah, we get it all decorated up and Mom would just, go ballistic. Every Christmas she went ballistic. And the tree would go out the door, guaranteed. Anyway. So, yeah, I met George. And I went to continuation high school for a while. But I couldn't work and go to high school at the same time. And I was always working. So I had to drop high school. I said, okay, you're on your own now. 14, 15. You're going to have to make your own way now. I let my mom keep my Social Security checks, though. But I met him right about 15 or so. And we were having disco then. I didn't quite like disco. I mean, I liked Soul Train. I didn't really like disco dancing, though. I liked more soul music. That was me. I liked War and Sly and the Family Stone and the funk. And Roller Coaster of Love, say what? Yeah, I was into that kind of music. And some people judged me for it. Really. But, yeah, 10 to 15, oh, hey. And then the incident, right when I was about 12 with Pierre Gallardo, the minister at Unity Church. And that blew my mind. Oh, my God. And I'll share the story because he was lucky he didn't get his head blown off. I was babysitting over a summer. I think I was 12 or so. And, in fact, I was 12. And, Pierre Gallardo was the assistant minister at Unity Church in Walnut Creek, California. And he had a nice wife and 2 beautiful daughters. And he took me and my brother everywhere to these, like, church council meetings and stuff. And he took me to the King Tut's exhibit at San Jose Museum. Oh, wow. When I saw King Tut, something happened to me. I couldn't take my eyes off. I really could not. It changed me forever when I saw Tutankhamun's mask. And wow. Yeah, and he would take us different places, And I would go and I would babysit his little girls for free. When his wife and him wanted to go out to dinner, or, they had a meeting or something. And I went over there this one night, and I even gave him $100 of babysitting money I made from some other people because his family fell on hard times. And I went over there this one night to go babysit the girls. And I'm sitting there on the floor, and they had this one room, and it had a TV on the floor. There's no furniture in the room, so I'm just sitting there watching TV, sitting on the floor, just me. And Pierre comes into the room, in his robe because they're getting ready, getting ready to go out, the minister and his wife. Yeah, and it was really funny because, he sits down next to me, nothing, and it's like, gosh, I stood at the pulpit all day, gosh, my legs hurt. Will you please rub my legs for me? Oh, sure. Yeah, sure, okay. And so he unrobes his legs a bit, I'm rubbing his calves, innocently. Nothing to it for me, really. And then, of course, he disrobes totally. And I'm like, what the chips is this? I see. He says, will you take care of this for me too? Come on, And I stood up and I said, you're supposed to represent God, right? You're supposed to be a representative from the pulpit, right? You're supposed to represent God. He said, well, that's right. I said, well, if you represent God, then there must not be one. And from that moment on, I went atheist at best. And I went home and told my brother David. And David went ballistic. He took his 9mm over there to that guy's house. His wife there and everything. He put that 9mm right to his head. And he said, "You're dead." I said, David, David, don't do that. I said, just give him 3 days to leave. Just tell him just to go, because I didn't want my brother to blow his face off on my account. So I said, stand down, David. Just give him 3 days. Dave said, you got 3 days to get the hell out of here. Then, other than that, there's no mercy if I see you. And he was gone the next day with his family. He never came back, ever. But it turned my heart black. I went absolutely black and dark in the Mount Diablo. I decided right then, hey, there's no God. I'm not accountable to anybody for anything. I'll be a power unto myself and do what I want. There is no God to me. Not if that's how he is, anyway. I don't want nothing to do with that. No way. No way. Nope. And that was at 12. Yeah. And it was awful for me. It really took away any faith in the heavenly. And I had already died, you see, at 8 to go back. And I've been in the heavenly presence. So it took a lot for it to blow my mind to go just absolutely black in Mount Diablo. Yeah. And then we had the fire. David, my brother. That was right about that time, between 10 and 15, definitely. I think it was in 1976 he lit that fire up on Mount Diablo. And David had suffered from Uncle Gilbert's sexual abuse. I did too. That's another part of the story. But my brother David lit that mountain on fire when I was 13. And that mountain burned for 3 weeks. You could look it up. Anything I say or express, you can check the facts yourself. You can check me any way you want. I'm good at 85% or better memory. 85% of my facts, dates and times and places and people. So they've done 2 forensic psychiatric evaluations on me. They say mostly it's just trauma I've suffered, but intensely. Okay? But my memory is 85% or better. Anyway, David lit that mountain on fire, and I was getting all the animals down from the mountain, bringing them down into the valley and helping them. I tried to put some of the fire out. There was just none. There was no putting that fire out. David was in anger. He lit everything on fire. My brother David was the ultimate pyromaniac. The fire marshal knew him by name. Backyards, houses, garbage houses. My brother set so many fires. He really did. And he always had a fire going in his room. Always. And he lit his farts on fire. David. That was hilarious. Anyway, so yeah, that fire burned for 3 weeks, and I come to find out later that kids who are sexually abused, like my poor brother, turn into pyromaniacs. It's a manifestation, fire, from sexual abuse. It's very common. Very common, unfortunately. And yeah, I'm putting myself on camera. I don't look real pretty, but hey, I'm 63, and I'm just putting my story out there so maybe people understand me a little bit better. And my HerStory. Yeah. Those who have the victory write the story, right? Yeah. And I always loved, Christ. But at that point, I even disconnected with him. Absolutely. Anything that had anything to do with heaven, I didn't want nothing to do with after Pierre Gallardo got through with it. And, yeah, a lot happened to me from 10 to 15. And, got in with some bad people, too, who took advantage of me. But I was kind of set up for it with my family, Once you treat a kid crappy and you degrade them and you abuse them and use them and totally confuse them, it becomes a habitual part of their life, unfortunately. As much as my mother knew about Carl Jung and psychology and things, but she was, you know how they treated her, pills and shock treatments, God help her. Anyway, my mom never found it. I spent hours and hours and hours with my mother trying to help her to understand her abilities. She just couldn't see. She goes, I can't hear God. I can't talk to God. I understood that. But I had a different kind of a connection. But I lost it with Pierre Gallardo, at 12. That was a lot for me. David had brought that up to me, gosh, 5 years ago or so, 4 years. It's really hard for me. But anyway, yeah, that mountain burned. There's great parties in the valley, though, great parties. No night for 3 weeks. They'd have live boxing in the backyards, amateurs, keggers, music, live music, pigs in the pit. Yep. At Lake Berryessa and Mount Shasta and the American River, Tahoe. Yeah, some great times. Absolutely during that too. Yeah, all the beaches, Northern California. Yeah, and a lot was changing in the Bay Area. The Democrats were really getting a stronghold in California and passing a bunch of laws. And hey, Dianne Feinstein was my hero because she brought women equal pay and equal rights and lifted the immigrants. Really loved her for this. And yeah, we were wearing halter tops and hip huggers and bell bottoms. And we showed that we were flower children and not hippies. There's a big difference between flower children and hippies. Yeah. Flower children were a whole nother edition. 63 to 67 are the flower children. We got that special vaccination. Yeah. And vaccinations were really getting strong then too. And we were told a lot of BS from our government. Vietnam finally got over with. And yeah, there's a lot going on those days. Yeah. Pretty sky. Yeah, totally. Is that one cloud there? I'm at 32, 38. Yeah. And I want to do, just 10 to 15. This is the 3rd chapter, so what else can I think of that happened to me during that period, man? Well, I went in, I got together with George and left my mom's house and dropped out of school and went to work. And I made good money. I was always able to do sales and marketing, and I was really good at it, so I could take good care of myself, and him too, but he treated me just like my dad, really. He was abusive and totally. And ended up not being loyal to me. Like pretty much every man I've been with, pretty much. Not all of them. But anyway, I do a lot of anyways, huh? Yeah. Well, this is just my story, and for whoever's listening, for posterity, this is coming right directly from my mouth in history. This is just my story. And people may not agree with me, but I saw what religion did to me, personally. Almost killed me. But I still had faith in the heavenly. But it was going to be 15 years until I was 27 to pull myself up out of that. And I thought I was safe with George. At least I had stability at him and his mom's house anyway. And hey, we partied and Mount Diablo all the time. Tahoe, Berryessa, Shasta, American River. We did a lot of really cool things too. And it was a great time in Mount Diablo Valley from 10 to 15 as far as, you know, well, everything, there was nothing really held back. Everybody had the best of everything, I think. You know, we went from records to 8-tracks to cassettes. That was awesome. I loved cassettes. And it was, you know, technology really, really changed quite a bit in that time. Computers were just really coming in. Auto dialers. And yeah, technology was really changing at that time. And yeah, the economies had changed. Everything in those 10 years from 73 to 78. Yeah. And some chapters may be shorter than others, and that's okay. I remember when Leonard Skinner had their accident, and they died that day. Oh, yeah. That was a loss. Ronnie Van Zant. He was awesome. And we had Elton John was really strong then. Definitely. And yeah. Dad was still gone then. He didn't come back till I was 16. That's in the next chapter. But anyway, I think we'll wrap this one up. I'm going to be at peace because I've learned about tranquility and meditation and going within and being my own best mommy and getting all the garbage that people like George and my mom and dad and my brothers programmed into me, and people who said they loved me. Yeah. See, one thing my family never taught me was how to love myself. They never taught me to love me. They always taught me to look outside myself. Yeah, if you're loving enough, people will love you. If you're good enough, then people will see you as good. If you're perfect enough, you'll be perfect. And that's not true. I found out quite the opposite, actually. You know, I wish they would have taught me to love me and not look outside myself for anything. Really. Yeah. If I had been taught to fill myself up and love myself and honor myself, I wouldn't have followed so many creepy people who misled me. I would have followed myself and honored me. Absolutely. Yeah, I would have honored me. Yeah, I would have taken care of my bay laurel tree instead of everybody. I'm looking for them to rescue me or take care of me. Yeah, totally. Right, Batty Kiki? It's Batty Kiki? Yeah, that's right. You take care of yourself, Mommy. It's your meow? Yeah. Settling in for the evening. Yeah. And we're growing. And we're still growing and learning. Definitely. It's really about faith and our connection within, with the heavenly within us, not without us. And I'm going to wrap up this chapter. I love you, loves. Forever after.